The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello, friends, and thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week, we'll cover Austin FC's new signing, along with a couple of other moves and rumors. We'll preview the 2022 schedule, and then also interview Roma Desai, who is the Austin FC fan that went to every game last season. My name's Landon Cottom, and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey, everybody, I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
So, Jeremiah, do your kids still do Santa, or are you still a Santa household?
We're a big Santa household still.
Okay. I was listening to a podcast that I've listened to on and off for several years now, called 99% Invisible, which is an excellent podcast, but they did an episode about the three Santas of Slovenia, and I thought it was very interesting and also slightly apt because of our own Jean Kolmanic, who is from Slovenia. But there are three Santa Clauses in Slovenia, and all three of them are like prominent and celebrated every year. And so they have the Catholic saint, who is called Miklaus, who is like kind of the original Santa figure there.
So,
and
like,
then,
what does he do? Like Santa stuff or regular
like
Santa
kind
stuff?
of Santa stuff. I think it's like more European Santa stuff, where it's like he'll leave an orange in your shoe or something like that. And then whenever Slovenia was part of Yugoslavia, communist Yugoslavia, they kind of adapted the Soviet Santa into a character called Didek Mraz. And that was like their like communist Santa, who was this own new thing that like essentially only exists in Slovenia now. And then as they came out of Yugoslavia and became a democratic capitalist country, they kind of adapted like Western Santa Claus, but he has a different name and it's Boziček. And so they have Miklaus, Didek Mraz, and Boziček that, like, depending on where you are, you might get gifts or something from all three of the Santa Clauses as a child.
Oh my gosh! Like, do they? I just guess that like the communist Santa Claus and the capitalist Santa Claus probably leave like different types of gifts, right? Like,
I have no idea. I would be very curious to know that.
I think you get like very industrial gifts from the like Soviet Santa Claus, very practical things, and maybe the capitalist one would, I don't know, have like something super flashy. I think in my head that's how it works.
In any case, next time Jean Kolmanic has media availability, this is the question I'm asking him: is which Santa Claus visited him and which was his favorite? All right, so I wanted to touch back on last episode real quick on our preview of Swoon Tower Soccer. Thanks so much for everyone who reached out and gave us feedback on that. We got a lot of positive feedback, which we really appreciate. And then also I heard from a couple of people who are like, well, it's not really my cup of tea, but I appreciate the rest of the shows you guys do. That being the case, it's probably not going to be like a 1-for-1 matchup of audiences, right? Like, I imagine there's going to be some people who tune into both, but there's probably going to be people who only want to listen to Swoon Tower and people who only want to listen to Moon Tower. That's completely fine. And going forward, we are likely going to release Swoon Tower as its own episode. And so as you see that pop up into the feed, if I would encourage you to listen to Swoon Tower because we have a lot of fun making it. But if it's not your thing, fair enough. You can skip that episode and just listen to the next Moon Tower whenever that comes out in a few days. So again, we appreciate it. If there's anything you want to hear in that, let us know. We need to come up with some like punny segment titles for that. So if you have any ideas, holler at us and we might be able to work it in. All right, let's jump into the Austin FC news. So starting with the biggest news that came out today as we're recording Monday, December 20th, Austin FC has signed free agent Ethan Finlay, formerly of Minnesota United. What can you tell us about Ethan Finlay, Jeremiah?
Yeah, Ethan Finlay is 31 years old. As Landon said, he was with Minnesota United. He was out of contract at the end of last season. Austin signed him to a 2-year deal. He's a right wing, almost exclusively a right wing, right? I mean, I was looking at Transfer Market, and he played a few places at other spots, but that's where he's spent most of his career. Very familiar with Josh Wolf from I believe it was 5 seasons he spent in Columbus prior to going to Minnesota. And also he did a Twitter space today and mentioned how much he liked Hector Jimenez and Brad Stuver. And one other thing that I was reading the Minneapolis Star-Tribune article about it today, and I guess he is was one of the few remaining players from their 2017 inaugural season roster, which I thought was interesting because it's only what it's like 4. We're going to our 5th season since then, which then makes me think about how much turnover. Like if that is the case, like most of these guys we have in Austin won't be around either in 2026 or whenever 5 years from now is. So that's kind of a wild thought.
Although I think Minnesota kind of did like a soft launch and played somewhat of a USL team that first season. And so I don't know if like all of our guys will be gone in 4 years, but a fair amount of them probably.
Yeah, and he did too. He talked about how you can have a really, really bad first season and turn it around in a really big way in year 2. But I think your point about how that Minneapolis roster was constructed probably made that even worse. It's like they were coming from a really, really low floor to get better. Yeah,
so we can talk a little bit about what kind of player he is. And I think Phil West did a pretty good summation in a quote he posted online earlier today, Jeremiah, if you want to read that for us.
Yeah, Phil, this is in Slack. Phil called him very MLS. He will occupy the out of a roster spot and do some good things. It's probably the best summer you could possibly have of the way he plays.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he very much is that like MLS core type of player, a lot like some of the guys we were supposed to have last season and ended up not having for most of the season. Guys like Ulysses Segura, guys like Ben Sweat, who we were supposed to have filling in these spots that just weren't there. But yeah, Ethan Finlay is very much of that mold. I really feel like he's a similar player to Jared Stroud, but an upgrade in most ways. He's fast, a very workmanlike winger. He puts in some good defensive work and is actually quite good defensively. I think where he does better than Stroud is in his crossing. I think he crosses the ball more intelligently than Stroud does. Stroud seemed to me to kind of his first trick that he would pull out of his bag was just that early cross low and hard, but kind of blind a lot of times. Like it didn't ever really seem like it was aimed at a person half the time. Ethan Finlay seems to be a bit more intentional with his crosses. And he also, one thing I noticed in watching footage of him, he really likes to do like a little back post floater as he's on the edge of the box. So I could see Cecilio Dominguez really enjoying playing with Ethan Finlay as he's kind of sitting on that back side, poaching and waiting for balls to fall to him. I could see him and Gite really enjoying having Finlay out on that wing sometimes to put in crosses to them.
I was going to go just because you mentioned him defensive, and we didn't really cover the stats very much, but like last season he played in 30 matches. He played about 1,700 minutes. He had 3 goals and 2 assists, and throughout his career, he scored 47 times and assisted 35. So I mean, he's not going to be a huge goal scorer, but like you said, I think he contributes to the team in other ways.
Yeah, he's very much he's one of those kinds of wingers that Greg Berhalter really likes. Your Paul Arriola types that do stuff that doesn't necessarily turn into stats, but will do exactly the job that the coach wants them to do. And I think it's just one of those players that Wolf knows and trusts and can trust to put in the shift that he's asking him to put in. And it seemed to be something that we didn't always have on the field last year, right? We heard Wolf several times say like, okay, well, guys aren't exactly doing what I'm asking him to do. I think Finlay is one of those guys. He's going to do what you ask him to do.
Yeah, I think Taylor Rudolph had a pretty good comparison on Twitter where he's like, if you now Finlay's your new Stroud and Stroud is your new Mane and Mane's gone, then you've definitely upgraded your roster.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great point because I think it's underappreciated how thin we were last season, because even in the games where we would go into it saying like, okay, we should have our best 11, you need more than 11 players to like fully plan out a strategy, right? Because as you bring in a guy like Finlay, I heard somebody or read somebody online saying like, but he plays the same position as Diego. It's like, we can have more than one right winger. Like, we need more than one right winger. And so as like guys go down, you can move Diego inside and start Finlay. And that wasn't a luxury we had all last season. And so having more solid players is great. And like, if Diego keeps up his form, then he's going to start in front of Finlay, but having Finlay on the bench is never going to be a bad thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of this reaction maybe comes from the fact that this is the first signing of the offseason, and therefore to a lot of people, it's the most important signing of the offseason. But if this is the only player we sign, obviously we're in desperate trouble, but it doesn't mean this is going to be the most marquee signing we have or the one that adds the most valuable to the club or anything like that. It's just the first deal that got done for a number of reasons. Number one being he's a free agent. Who's out of contract.
Right. Like this is the easiest one to get done, right? All you have to do is negotiate with the player. Boom. Whenever these other transfers, bringing guys in from other clubs, it's 100 times more complicated than signing a free agent. And so it does make sense that this is the one that gets done first. I was really hoping that it was going to be a center back signing, but I don't think it's any reason to panic. Like, we are going to sign a center back only because we have to.
Right.
Like, we're not going to not sign a center back. We absolutely have to sign a center back. So don't worry about that. You can worry about who the center back is going to be and if they're going to be good enough. If you want to worry about that, go for it. But don't worry about the fact that about the possibility that we're just not going to sign one, because that's not going to happen. Let's talk a little bit about his salary. I think this is another thing that some people were kind of panicking about. So he was on $450,000 for the last few years at Minnesota, which is pretty high, but that's not necessarily and likely going to be what he's going to be on this year, right?
Right. And so I went back, we mentioned the guy Kakuta Mane, because I was thinking of somebody else that we had signed that was on a ton of money. Kakuta was on like 500,000 the year before we signed him for 80. And I severely doubt that Ethan Finlay didn't have other options. And I'm sure he's not on $80,000 on a hometown deal, but it could be quite a bit less than that $450,000 contract that he was at the last season of 2021 that we could still get him for and have more flexibility.
Yeah, I think he signed that contract in 2017, 2018, something like that. And he had a good season in Columbus. And I think Minnesota is bringing him in as kind of a plan for the next few years. And they put that investment in with that money. He's had a few down years in Minnesota. He's 31 years old now. So I don't know that he's in the position to be demanding $450,000. I would be willing to bet a lot of money whenever the next MLS Players Association salary guides come out in sometime in the spring that he's probably going to be somewhere closer to $300,000. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but it's going to be significantly lower than 450 is my bet.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very solid bet.
So we still have a lot of wingers on the team, which is partly, I don't know, another reason I'm kind of surprised that Finlay was one of the guys brought in. But looking at our depth chart, it's maybe not as crazy as it seems. And looking at guys like Diego Fagundes, John Gallagher, central midfield was a spot where I was thinking maybe we could use a few more pieces. But bringing in a guy like Finlay, that allows you to play Diego centrally more if you want to. And then John Gallagher, do you think that we might see him more in the defense this year? Is he going to be one of the plans for fullback?
He played really well the one time that we saw him do that, and he has a little bit of history at it, but I don't think I would consider the offseason a success if our reinforcement on the back line was a guy who's also played striker for us.
Yeah, that would make me nervous too, because looking at our depth chart right now, it's Jean Kolmanich at left back, Nick Lima at right back, and Hector Jimenez is the backup for both of them.
Yeah, I was just looking at minutes earlier. So Ethan Finlay played 1,700 minutes last year for Minnesota. So if you assume he plays about the same, this is to your point about needing more than 11 guys. Like, that's basically Hector Jimenez, Matt Beasler kind of minutes. So if you think about we're bringing him in to be a part of a rotation, that makes total sense, that he would sort of slot in a number of different places along with other moving parts of folks that we have who have roster flexibility.
Yeah, I agree. A safe pair of hands to put 1,700 minutes in.
Right. Very MLS, again, to Phil's point.
So, speaking of wingers, we thought we had one less whenever Jared Stroud's option wasn't picked up, but it was announced last week that he's coming back. So, they signed a new 3-year contract with 2 more option years. Oh, no, sorry. It's the second and third year are the options, isn't it? Is that right?
Right. So team options
Okay.
for years 2 and 3.
Yeah. Okay. So Chris Bills was able to confirm that he will be on a supplemental roster spot instead of a senior roster spot. Do we think that was the main hanging point? Like, why did they decide not to pick up the option and then bring him back on this new contract?
That's the thing that makes the most logical sense. And the reason he was on the senior roster spot, for those that don't know, is because when he, as a condition of being selected in the expansion draft, he had to occupy a senior roster slot. So I'm surely they had to give him a little money or something to convince him to come back on the supplemental. I don't know, because I don't know what the rules are on the supplemental, but that seems to be the most logical thing to do, is to just to free that spot up, or maybe give him the chance to explore whether somebody else wanted to pay him more a little bit and then bring it back when that's not the case.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that during that time that he had his agent putting feelers out and was seeing what was available, and if Austin's offer was still the next best thing. And it's one more year either way, right? And Jared Stroud doesn't care if he's on the senior roster or the supplemental roster, really. Like, if he's making the same or similar money and this was the best job offer he had, then sure, it makes sense for him. I'm curious about the salary too, though. Like, we don't quite yet know which section of the supplemental roster he's on yet. So he could have either stayed on the same money, which he was already on senior minimum. And so the first little chunk of supplemental roster spots, he would need to be making senior minimum. But then there's that second batch where he could be making less. Is that right? Would he be able to fit into one of those spots?
I don't know with his age. I don't remember, but I don't know if it was like with his age and experience, if he would be able to fit into those other spots.
Yeah, that might be true. So yeah, either he might be on the exact same money as he was before, but to Austin FC, maybe it's worth it just for moving him down to the supplemental spot and opening up another senior roster spot, because those are pretty valuable at this point in time. All right, let's move on to a couple of other player rumors that we've seen coming out. Tell us about this first one, Jeremiah.
Yeah, so the first one, did you tell me to do this because you want to hear how I can take a shot at pronouncing this guy's name?
Oh, I actually did some YouTube investigating. I believe it's pronounced Leo Väisänen.
Leo Väisänen is a Finnish center back currently playing at the Swedish club Elfsborg, and I got those backwards, the original set of notes. So luckily I caught myself and turned those around. But yeah, he's a Finnish center back playing in Sweden. He's 24. Has 15 caps for the Finnish national team, in addition to being a pretty regular starter for his club in Sweden, which plays in the Swedish first division. I don't know where that sits in terms of like quality of play, but I think it's kind of upper tier in Europe. If I'm right
about the Swedish league.
About the Swedish league, yeah. Like he's playing in a pretty decent league and starting almost every match.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I think the part that shows some of his quality to me is with the national team. He's become kind of a mainstay for the Finnish national team. So he's playing in Sweden, but he's from Finland. At 24 years old, he's started every World Cup qualifier for them this year and is a nailed-on starter for the national team at this point, which, again, Finland isn't the highest level national team, but they're not bad. There's several other MLS, pretty good MLS players playing on that team. Alex Ring actually retired from international play. Otherwise, he would likely be playing on that team as well. So that kind of sets the level for you. If you look at Alex Ring and say, okay, he's one of our best players. If this Väisänen kid is playing on that team at a similar level, then that might give you an idea of what we can expect from him. So I watched a little bit of footage of him. So he's a big guy. He's 6'2", 175. So he's big, but he's not like a big lumbering guy. Like, he's still pretty athletic and moves fairly well. He'll fight in the box and will throw his body around at stuff. He's not quite the tank that Johan is, but he's more agile and moves a lot better than Julio does, if that kind of places him in that spectrum a little bit. One thing that really stood out to me watching him is his long balls. So he can play a really nice, like driven, accurate long ball, and probably at a higher level than anybody on our current roster. So I think that's something that's really missing from the Austin FC team. I mean, Jean can put in a really nice long cross, but I saw lots of footage of Väisänen kind of pushing the ball up from the back line, kind of like you would see Beasler doing a lot early in the season, and then just putting a ball on a dime on a winger, kind of running up one of the opposite sides, and looked really good doing that. And that would be something that, like I said, nobody on our current team can really do.
That's one of the things we hear. We hear so much about not breaking lines, and that is definitely one way to do it.
Yeah. So after watching the footage of this guy, I would be very pleased to see him come. So the rumor stemmed from a tweet from a guy named Johan Dieckhoff, who is, I believe he is Swedish, or at least in Sweden, but does a podcast about MLS and covers MLS there. And he was quoting another, like a very well-known journalist in Sweden, who said on his podcast that Austin FC was looking at this guy. So there seemed to be smoke, and it looks like the striker was actually able to confirm from a source that they are talking. So the way it was, do you remember what the quote was? It was like, yes, there's an offer, but it might not be high enough.
Oh, that's exactly right. Yeah, and somebody thought maybe the player's agent was the source of that. Yeah.
Which, I mean, either way, they're confirming that the talks are happening. So this isn't completely made up like some of the other rumors we've seen over the last couple of years. But yeah, I would honestly be really happy to see this happen. As far as money goes, I'm not sure where he would fall, if he would have to be a DP or if we could fit him into a TAM contract. But either way, I would welcome it.
So speaking of Johans, we got a second rumor. This is a 25-year-old Colombian midfielder, Johan Valencia, which this came to my knowledge through a tweet from you. So you should probably cover that.
Yeah, which is maybe indicative of the reliability of this transfer rumor. But I saw it on, it's a website in Colombia that covers Colombian soccer, and this is the only place I've seen it since then as well. And so I don't know, they were connecting this guy to Austin FC. Like I said, haven't seen it anywhere else, but this guy's a 25-year-old midfielder. He actually came from the academy system at Deportivo Cali and is still playing with them. And from what it looks like, he's doing really well there and is probably ripe for a move somewhere. But we've not seen anything else there. So maybe this is nothing, or maybe it's something. In either case, both of these guys would take up international spots, which it's still very unclear how many of those we actually have, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we thought all 8 slots were filled, but then we had this mystery where Danny Pereira wasn't listed as an international, but now he is listed as an international on the Austin FC website. So if the website is to be trusted, which we know is kind of an iffy proposition, we'd either have to, we'd have to acquire a slot from somebody to sign either player. And I mean, we know there's plenty going around, right? Because Charlotte picked up a bunch. So they can be had, but it's straightforward. It's just finding a guy and liking a guy and making a deal at this point.
Yeah, and they seem to be a little bit expensive these days too, because I think, did Nashville sell one to Charlotte for like $250,000?
That sounds right.
Yeah, so it's not cheap, but if it's for the right player, it's worth it. So that'll be an interesting front to watch as well, is to find out if we have more spots, and if we don't, where are we going to get one? A couple of other players leaving. So Mackenzie Gaines was, surprisingly to a lot of people, chosen as the first pick in the expansion draft by Charlotte. So I know that next year we're going to be exempt from the expansion draft because Mackenzie Gaines was taken from us. But the year after that, I'm going to make 0 predictions because we've proven that we're very, very bad at predicting expansion drafts.
I think that, well, yeah, that's for sure true. Because I don't think that, yeah, I know. I think we told people to not worry about it, that it'd be safe. There's nobody worth taking that was left. And then
the players
Gaines,
that we did list, Gaines was not one of them, which looking back was complete oversight on my part, at least, because like in hindsight, like of course he's at risk. He's a young guy coming back from Germany looking to prove something on very little money at this point. So yeah, he's of course like a decent pick for that, but I just completely overlooked him when I was making my list and didn't include him in my my top 4 players to be taken from Austin FC, and he was the only one. So a lot of people were pretty worked up about this, weren't they, Jeremiah?
Yeah, it was for multiple reasons. One, I mean, I think everybody remembers that beautiful goal that he scored, which is his 1 goal in 9 matches, and then a lot of folks who have a real deep connection to Austin and to this area were really bought into him being the local boy who grew up and came to play for his team. I think to the point where there are plenty of people who wanted to find a way to get Julian Gaines in town also, so we could have both the Gaines brothers, and so I think there was a lot of emotion that came out of that too. Yeah,
I completely get that too. Like having a local kid on the team is awesome. Like that's so cool. And like Kakuta was like semi-local, right? But I think by a certain point in the season, nobody really had a lot of hopes in Kakuta having much effect on the field anymore. And so Gaines was kind of the hope for that, right? So it's sad to have that happen, but it's part of an expansion draft. Like if you're a fan of a league that has an expansion draft, this is just something that happens. And so there's a lot of people saying that the club should have done more to protect him. I don't know what you think, Jeremiah. I don't know that there's much else they could have done. And even if they had done more, I don't know that Gaines would have been the one they would have used that extra spot on.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they saw that coming necessarily. I don't think, because we protected the. I mean, basically, with the rules, you get to protect the starting 11 plus one other guy, and I would not have. I don't know.
Was it Gallagher that you were going to protect?
Yeah,
instead of Redis.
Yeah, so I would have protected Gallagher, and not Gaines. So I don't know. That's just clearly we all missed it. But like Tom Bogert missed it. Like a lot of people, the people who are in the prediction business, I feel like all missed Mackenzie Gaines too. So I don't feel alone in that.
I think it just shows that expansion drafts are impossible to predict in general. But
yeah, and did you see the like he got a pretty cool send off though, right? In that Sunny, in Sunny's like Austin Pro versus Pro game. Did you see any of that?
Yeah, I wasn't out there, but I saw the pictures and videos from it afterwards. So Sonny Guadarrama, who's a local guy who most recently played for the Bold, but spent some time in Mexico playing professionally as well. And like as far as like Austin products go, one of the most successful players to come out of Austin, he put together like a little Austin All-Star game, which it was him and Kakuta and McKenzie, and then Kyrie Shelton, who's a starter for Kansas City and a pretty damn good MLS player, was in town. He's from Austin as well. And then some other guys playing for MLS teams and USL teams all came in and did a little friendly game. But it was the day of or the day after Gaines got selected in the draft. And it ended up being like a cool little send-off for him. And a lot of fans were already planning to go out there and check it out and got to say bye to McKenzie one last time.
Yeah, and he was not the only. Well, I guess he was the only guy officially out, but we also lost Ben Sweat officially today, which I think we had some dream of him bringing him back on some super cheap deal to fill out the back line, as we talked about earlier. But he is now officially a member of Sporting Kansas City.
Yeah, Ben Sweat. I did hope we were able to bring him back, but I think I said either on one of the last few episodes that he was on $250,000, and I think he's worth $250,000. And so I would have loved to keep him here, but if somebody's going to pay him, then I don't I think he should go get paid. And He seems like a good dude. I feel bad for him that he never really got a shot here, but I hope he's getting paid and gonna get taken care of there, because as much as I want to see him here, I want him to be taken care of as well. So going back to Gaines for just a second, how much of a miss do you think he is to this team? Did you have like high hopes for Gaines?
No, I don't think he's a huge. He's a youngish guy. He's super fast. I mean, he has some talent, but like I don't think we could have counted on him for a lot. I don't see it as a huge loss. I mean, just from the production that he had in the time he was here, and
the time before, I think that's something to look at. You said youngish, and that's right, because he's going to be 24 in the spring, and so he's not. I mean, that's not old, but it's at 24, you are more or less the soccer player you're going to be. You can refine things at that point, but we've got the reason Austin FC was able to get him is because he was playing in the German 3rd or 4th division essentially, and like wasn't asked back. I think maybe that's a little bit deceiving, because he was playing, I think for Hanover was his last team, and was playing for their second team. So it's more so Hanover didn't ask him back because they didn't think he was worth the first team contract. But you would think if he were there, he could find something, like find a job somewhere in the second division or with another Bundesliga team if he was showing promise. But apparently he wasn't. Very fast, scored an amazing goal. I would have liked to have him as a role player here, but I don't expect him to become a superstar one day. I know Chris Wellhouse and several others will disagree with me, but I hope him all the best, but I don't know that we're going to look back at this in 5 years and say, oh, Mackenzie Gaines is
if only, MLS
MVP. We could have had him. Like, I don't think that's going to be the case.
And we got $500 in GAM for him and exemption from the next MLS expansion draft. So one could say that we came out ahead in that move.
I think it's 50,000.
50,000. This is why I don't read.
Yeah.
This is why I don't read things in the moment. Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Isn't very much. It's something, but it's not very much. But yeah, we don't have to participate in the expansion draft next season. So hopefully our roster will be even more fleshed out at that point and stronger, and we don't have to worry about protecting anybody. So there's always a bright side there. All right. Anything else before we take a break, Jeremiah?
No. Let's go ahead and go to break.
All right, cool. We will be back in a little bit with an interview with Roma Desai. I think that name will be familiar to most of our listeners at this point, but she attended every Austin FC match, both home and away, all season. And so we'll talk about kind of her journeys to all those games, and also kind of her entry points in Austin FC and some of her highlights of her travels. So hang tight. We'll be right back. Moontower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FVF Law, the official injury lawyers of Austin FC.
FVF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education.
You can go to fvf.law to find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's fvf.law. All right, welcome back. We are now joined by Roma Desai, who most of you will know as the fan who attended every Austin FC match, home and away. Roma, thanks so much for joining us. It's great to see you.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm a longtime listener, first-time guest.
So I know that we got to hang out in the at the Minnesota game. That was one of the games that I traveled away to, and there weren't very many of us there. So it ended up being me and you and Katie Ensign and my wife Ashley kind of spent that weekend together, and so I got to know you then, which was a true pleasure. But what kind of hooked you into the Austin FC community? Because tell me if I'm remembering this right. I know Jeremiah and I both came to soccer a bit later in life. Am I remembering correctly that was the case for you as well?
No, I've been a soccer fan since, probably the 1999 Women's World Cup. and an Arsenal fan, long time watching like EPL.
Okay, I was way off then. Sorry.
But MLS wise, I kind of watched it. I wouldn't say I'd followed it closely until maybe before I moved to Austin about 5.5 years ago or so now. And a couple of years before that, I was sort of following or watching MLS, but not following it too closely, just because I hadn't really lived anywhere that had a team close enough. And then, when I moved to Austin about 5.5, 6 years ago, I was actually going to Haymaker for a U.S. international game, and I was a little bit early, and there was a meeting with the group that was trying to bring MLS to Austin. And so I was just listening in, and I didn't even know that was a possibility at that time. That was in, I think, 2015, 2016. And so I started going to those events, and sort of that's sort of how I got involved. And you guys know the progression then kind of went pretty quickly from there.
Yes, so that led us to 2021. And I mean, so let's talk about the decision to go to the first match, because that was, I mean, I think not everybody remembers this, but like we didn't even know if anybody was going to be able to go. Like, I don't know if you had a ticket when you went. Like, talk about that very first Austin match.
Yeah. So speaking of Katie Ensign, Derek, Rigo, a few of us, we were just so excited when that schedule dropped and we saw LA being that first game, and had no intentions of. We didn't think we were going to get in, really. I mean, but I think Katie might have looked up tickets and said, "Oh, flights are pretty reasonable." And we were all just so excited. We said, "Why don't we just go? We're not going to get in, but we can go. We can watch it at the bars or whatever. Even at the hotel. Maybe we'll bring like a projector." And we just wanted to be in the city when the team played their first game. And then I think, I was just kind of closely watching what was happening with LAFC and whether they were allowing fans or not, and looking at the secondary market. And I ended up finding tickets, and I bought them, but I wasn't sure that they were legit tickets or not at the time. Again, they still hadn't said whether fans would be allowed. And so it went from, okay, no tickets at all, to maybe these tickets are real, maybe they're not, to even if we have real tickets, we don't know if, they're letting anybody in outside of LA and outside of California, to getting there. And I think there was a group of probably 40 to 50 that ended up going, and everyone got tickets on that secondary market and were able to get in, which was amazing.
That was, I remember there was like those pictures of y'all like with the team bus driving by y'all and all that stuff. And I think, did like Precourt come down and hang out or something, or?
I didn't see him, but I know he was there. So there might've been a few people who had met up with him, but yeah, we got to greet the bus. I think even you could kind of see the players surprised that anybody was there from Austin. And that was really cool. And yeah, it was just, that's probably the most memorable away trip for me, just because it was that first game and the way that all came together, from not thinking we were getting into having a solid group inside and being able to watch the first game ever played.
That's really cool. So at what moment do you go from I'm going to go to one to I'm going to go to all? Like when did you decide that was going to be the case?
Honestly, it never was. I don't even know that through the last couple games that was like, I'm going to all these games. I think, the LA game, like I said, came together kind of on the spot there. Colorado was probably the only pre-planned. That first Colorado game was the only pre-planned game, because we knew we were able to get tickets to that one. Every other game along the way, it was one of those, I was just having so much fun going, anybody would really. So it was just kind of like, all right, I'll see the game this week where it is, and if I can make it. And luckily, a lot of the games were on weekends, or they were direct flights. So I was able to work it around my schedule.
So I know there was a few times where you were a little nervous you weren't going to be able to go. I think the first one being one of the Canada trips, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Vancouver game. Initially, they were playing in Salt Lake City, And even when they were playing in Salt Lake City, it was, I think no fans were allowed. So that was, I mean, I was pretty set on, okay, well, that's likely going to be the first game that I'm definitely going to miss, maybe some others along the way, but that was sort of a definite. And then they moved that one to Vancouver, but I didn't have an updated passport. My passport had expired. And because of the pandemic, I, wasn't in a rush to have that renewed. But then when this happened, and again, it was over a long weekend. So I was like, well, let's see if I can get that passport renewed, then I'll go. And luckily there were a few people within the Los Verdes community who had, I guess, gone through the passport process recently and sort of gave me some tips on what to try. And I went to the office, sent in my passport, and they told me then that it was going to take, 6 or 7 weeks, and it was going to either be the week I was going to get it either in time or a week later. So it was just, I lucked out and it came in time.
So looking back across the whole season, I know you said the first LA trip is maybe your favorite. Is there any other like surprising trips or like cities you weren't necessarily looking forward to that ended up being great, or even just like more other standout moments in any of the trips that you took?
Yeah, I think the cool thing about this is probably a lot of them ended up being, I mean, everyone was memorable for its own reason, but a lot of these trips were just so great because I'd never been to these cities before. And so that was another part of this. I mean, I was going for the games, but also a lot of these cities were places that I had wanted to go for years, Seattle, Portland, even Denver. I'd never been to any of these cities. And so it was just fun to go to that. Minnesota, the trip we went to, that was my first time really going and exploring the city. I had gone for work before, but never was able to really check out the city. And I loved it. I love that stadium and their supporters group. And I thought Kansas City was pretty cool too. They've got like a really vibrant downtown, a couple little pockets, and Seattle and Portland were amazing. But yeah, I think Vancouver was really cool. It was rainy, but it was still really nice there. But yeah, just about every city. I mean, it was fun to be able to see. But yeah, I think, let's see, favorite stadium might be between Minnesota and Portland, and favorite cities are Portland and Seattle. I think out of all of those, they were just it was a lot of fun, a lot of things to see and do, and looking forward to going back again.
Yeah, that Minnesota was one that like I was pleasantly surprised by the whole experience. The fans up there were so nice and welcomed us into what is essentially their home bar there and let us hang out with them before and after the game. And just a very fun and self-deprecating group that welcomed us into their little circle there.
Yeah, they were great. And I remember, I think that first game we won, and they told us to come to their bar afterwards prior to the game. And we thought, should we really go? We won. Is that kind of a no to go there? But we went, and they were just so welcoming. And the second time I went back, and we Austin FC lost that one, but we still went out and hung out with their supporter group at their bar. And yeah, that was a great city. I really enjoyed both trips.
So how consistent was that travel crew? Was it the same people? Was generally, or I mean, how many? It seems like you probably met a whole bunch of different fans throughout the part of the season.
Which was really cool. I think I liked that. That was like one of my favorite things is meeting so many other Austin FC fans. A lot were from Austin, but for maybe first time going to a game, because it was easier for them to get to an away game than it was a home game. And then others who were from Austin, but maybe moved to these cities and were still Austin FC fans. But there were, I think, I mean, there were a few people that I would say went to a good number of games. I mean, there's probably Duke went to maybe, I think he went to like 13 or 14 of them.
Oh, did he really?
Pretty close. Yeah. He only missed maybe the first 3 or 4. But then he went to a lot of them. Seth went to a good number. Kramer went to a lot of them. I'm trying to think, but there were, I feel like as we started going, Katie went to a bunch of them in the beginning and then towards the end. But I just felt as we kept going, I almost felt like, it felt like I was seeing some of the same people, and there was like a crew in a sense, but
You're like only seeing them on the road and not ever at home.
That's right. Yeah. Or I'd show up to like my gate for my flight and someone was there. So but there was always someone, which was really cool. And I think even that first trip, Landon, I think, we ended up probably having like maybe 10 people just by whoever other random people showed up that we weren't necessarily expecting. And I think that was pretty cool that there was always at least like some small group of Austin FC supporters. It wasn't just one or two. There were at least, around that 10 number, sometimes a lot more.
Well, if Duke was there, that probably explains like the quality of photography photos that were taken. Like so the second half of the season probably were greatly improved over who happened to shoot it with their phone.
Yes.
Early in the year.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely, he's got some great footage for sure. And he does magic with that camera. So
one of the last times I saw you was at City Hall when you were recognized as an ambassador of Austin by Mayor Adler a few weeks ago. What did you think about that? What did that mean to you?
That was incredible. It was a huge honor. It's tough because I feel like it's something that I don't singularly deserve because again, this is like a community effort. And I went to all those games because of the passion that, Austin has brought kind of all season, mostly at home. And that's why I was excited to go see the team and just everything the team put out there too. But it was a really cool honor to just have that and to have a lot of Los Verdes, La Murga, and a lot of people there who I think were there for those city council meetings in the beginning. But yeah, it was pretty cool. So
yeah, they told me it was one of the most fun presentations that they had done, and especially I think that day for sure. So did you get like a key to the city, or do you get what did you get out of that? Do you get like executive bathroom privileges at City Hall or anything?
No, I got a very nice certificate, and just the memory of it, but that's enough for me. That'll last a lifetime. So it's good.
I know you say you didn't achieve this, like it's not a singular effort, but you should know and probably do realize that like seeing you up there and getting this honor for all of the rest of us, like it felt like a win for everybody, and we were all very proud to see you like there, just like to not only for what you did and what you've meant to this community, but also the fact that like the mayor is taking time out of his day to recognize like our little crew here, which is really cool. Like I think that part of it was really, really awesome too.
Yeah. I do think, and that's the part of the community that, like I said, I just really am thankful for, because there were so many people there watching it, online, and just who knew about it. And that's all, like I said, a testament to just the supporters groups and what the Austin community here and how much they really do bring it for all these games. It's amazing.
So looking forward to 2022, there's probably going to be people who are traveling to away games for the first time. Are there any tips that you would give to people now that you're a pro at all this?
Well, I had a lot of help along the way, like I said, with, Katie, Seth, Brad, a lot of people who did the coordinating that made it easy for me to sort of jump on the flights. But I think what I would suggest is, number one, being a part of supporters group really helps, both for coordination and then also getting, maybe some cheaper tickets and having kind of block tickets and stuff. But even if you're not in a supporters group and you're thinking about going to a away game, I would reach out to those supporters groups, whether, it's Los Verdes or Austin Anthem, and just go see if they have people going or if they know what's going on, because it is a lot more fun when all the fans are able to get together. And yeah, I think, like I said, I just met a lot of people like that along the way, and it makes it more fun.
And so what's your plan for 22? How long will this go? Like how long are you committed?
It's the same thing. I can't, I'll never say I won't do it, but it's hard to see myself doing it again. I mean, a lot of these trips I was able to use miles or points and stuff like that, and I don't have as many, but we'll see. I don't have plans to go to every game, but it's really hard when I go to that, whatever first one I go to or don't go to will be a difficult decision. And I already have my eye on a couple of those Eastern Conference games that I'd love to go to. So we'll see, but it's at least it's better this year. We've this season coming up because we've got the schedule ahead of time.
So the first time I remember meeting you, Roma, was at the announcement for Josh Wolf being hired as the head coach. Is that right? Is that the first time we met?
I think that might have been, I mean, I definitely had seen you before, but I think that's right, Landon. It was either there or I don't know. I might have met you at kind of the pre-party before the big announcement.
Oh, okay.
At what was
Rustic Tap? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Rustic Tap. But I think there were the supporters sort of got together.
Oh, that was that was at Parlor and Yard. I think that place just down.
I think that's right. And we were just kind of gathering, and before we did sort of the march into the announcement. So I might have seen you there. But
in any case, I'm proud to be able to say that I knew you back when.
So, well, the feeling's mutual.
All right. Well, Roma, thanks so much for joining us. Hopefully I can join you on a few more of those away trips this year. Yeah, but here's to 2022, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys too, and thank you for doing this every week and your coverage. It's awesome.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Yep, bye.
I ain't got no time to let you pass. I only got one life, and it's gone too fast. So I'll get over and come back to me.
All right, we would like to thank Roma for joining us one more time. And like I said in the interview, hopefully we'll get to go on some more trips with her this year. In other Austin FC news, the 2022 schedule is completely out, and Austin FC announced it with a pretty cool video. What did you think of the video, Jeremiah?
Yeah, I thought the video was great. As the video was, what was that? Shot at Hotel Vegas.
Yeah.
I believe, included a group of fans, including Pollo FC was actually very
highlight.
Very
one of the stars of the
featured,
show was the Pollo.
Yeah, Pollo did a great job. And then the artist was who's
Black Joe Lewis and the Honey Bears.
Yeah, this is a great song. I've been listening to that song.
They've been around for a long time now, and I was I think I saw them at ACL in like 2011 or something. I saw it was Black Joe Lewis doing the song, and then to hear what that song was, like, whoa, this song rocks and is way different than I've ever heard them do. So I thought the whole thing was really cool. But let's get into the actual games. So the first game is at home, February 26th versus FC Cincinnati, but we already knew that one. So tell us what we did learn from this, Jeremiah.
Well, the last game is going to be a home game on decision day. It's going to be on October 9th versus Colorado. I don't know if we knew when the MLS Cup the final was scheduled to be previously, but the season, including the playoffs, will wrap up by November 5th, and that is because of the World Cup in Qatar, which we'll see what effect that has on everything. One of the things I was most excited about that I went through today and looked at is we do have 7 weekday matches, which is down from 10 in 2021. So that's a little bit less of a burden on weekday matches. And it's
are you counting Sundays in that?
No, Monday through Friday. But one of those is a Friday.
Okay.
For this week, for this year, one of them was a Friday and one of them was a Monday. So if you look at like those really midweek games, it gets like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It gets to be a lot fewer than there were in the past, which I think everybody will appreciate. And then obviously, because we'll open the stadium at home, the balance as far as home matches versus road matches will be a lot lighter too. I think the only downside of that is I remember there are like maybe three home games in July and August. So we will be tempting fate with the seat cooling technology, the wind, the breezy corners and everything else. Those those may be kind of tough, but hopefully we can, I don't know, maybe find a time when those aren't awful.
Yeah, so we're also going to be playing, is it 8 Eastern Conference teams?
Yep, 8 Eastern Conference games.
4 home, 4 away. And these are going to be all new teams that we've never played, correct?
Yes, that's right. So it's going to be, I was going to say, so the home ones are Cincinnati, the first one, Inter Miami, which is going to be interesting, I think, Orlando City, and the New York Red Bulls. And the Red Bulls playing here on July 24th. I think that's one where hopefully we can use the temperature to our advantage. And then the ones on the road, we're going to play DC United in April. We go to Montreal in June. We go to Charlotte in June. And we go to Atlanta in July.
Which of those road games, I know we kind of gave our Eastern Conference wish list a few episodes back. Which of these are you most hoping to be able to travel to?
Well, I think that our 2 favorites both ended up on this list.
I think
I
so.
think Montreal and Atlanta. I think I don't know if it was both. Like Philadelphia was one that was high on my list too. But I think I'm really excited about Atlanta. Probably more from. I mean, Atlanta's a great city, and I'm excited about it from like the soccer side of things. Like I've never been to Montreal, and I hear great stuff about it. So I'm really excited to plan. Like I told my wife, we're getting ready to go to Montreal in June, basically.
Yeah, I think those were my 1 and 2. I think I had Atlanta first and Montreal second, or at least in the top 3, but I think they were 1 and 2. So yeah, planning has already begun amongst the planning committees and the supporters group. So like Roma said in the interview we just did with her, if you are looking to do some of this traveling, reach out to your friendly local supporters groups, and they make it pretty easy because you essentially join a Slack channel and then just go along for the ride, which is awesome.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about this one is, in the spirit of coordination and cooperation, there's one Google form that both Los Verdes and Austin Anthem have sent out to everybody on their mailing list. So answer, no matter which email list you're on, or if you're on both, go ahead and fill that in so you can let folks know where the interest is and where the planning will be. I'd imagine that Atlanta on July 9th, because it's on a weekend and because it's Atlanta, I think will probably be one of the big trips of the season. I think it'll be the big Eastern Conference trip. I know a lot of people had a really good time in Denver, but the Denver match is really close to that too. So I think that Atlanta one may take a little bit away from Denver, where people can't do both trips in 1 week.
Yeah, I want to say the Denver one is maybe on July 4th.
I think it's on the 4th, yeah, or around it, if not on it.
Yeah. So also for folks who aren't season ticket holders, single game tickets are on sale now. And so I know last season they were kind of rolling them out in batches. This year they threw all of them up all at once. And so if you're not a season ticket holder and are looking to buy some single game tickets, you're able to do so now. So check that out. Anything else we need to cover, Jeremiah?
No, I think those were the high points. I think I'm really excited about the 2022 schedule. Looking forward to hopefully improved results and some exciting road trips and just like being out there with the soccer community.
Absolutely. All right. We would like to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Come find us on Twitter at lviajero87 and jbentley_ATX. And then you can also reach out to us through the contact page at moontowersoccer.com. And then we'd like to encourage you to visit the Striker Texas website. Jeremiah, what can folks look for there this week?
I think there's 2 things that are really good there. There's the Ethan Finlay. Chris Bills had a chance to sit down with him and do an exclusive interview today, so I would definitely check that out. And then, our guy Phil West wrote a good article about Brad Stuver playing Lady Ginger on Ballet Austin. I think that's this week, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think it's the 23rd.
Yeah, so if you're a Ballet Austin fan or a Brad Stuver fan, I would encourage you to check that out. But yeah, Phil actually interviewed Brad Stuver about that experience. Which if you haven't been, you've been to the Nutcracker, right? Have you seen?
I haven't.
So you've never seen so the Mother Ginger is this character that's like 20 feet tall, and it's sort of like the star of the show. And so there's it's a giant dress that comes down, and there's always a full size human in like over the top insane makeup. That like you stand on a platform inside of it and kind of overact and stuff. So it's like it's the main moment of the show. And so
they kind of have like Austin, like Austin celebrities kind of rotate playing it every night, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the mayor's done it. Most everybody on the city council's done it. You'll see like business leaders or celebrities or whatever will do it. So yeah, it'll be Brad Stuver's turn here later this week.
All right. Well, we are not planning on taking any breaks over this holiday season. The way that the dates work out, we'll have another show next week. We'll have one the week after that. So you won't have any more breaks without a show in the next for the rest of the year, I guess. But
hey, and
thanks so much.
I was gonna before we get to that, like, not to oversell anything. We've got a couple of these shows are gonna be pretty cool. Not that I mean every show is pretty cool and people just listen to every show, but like I'm excited about a couple of the things we have lined up as we get sort of transition from the off season into next season, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll share more details about those in the coming weeks. But stay tuned. We'll be back in 1 week with another episode of Moon Tower Soccer. Thanks so much for listening. And until then, I'm Landon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Muchas gracias. Bye bye.